Welcome to McConnell Air Force Base, Arts and Crafts Center's Hook, Yarn, and Needles. This is an introduction to knitting and crochet. In this video, I will show you different yarns you can work with and the tools that you will be using when you do this. One of the reasons people like to craft is because it helps them to get away from the stress of the day. They're creating something new and doing something, learning something. These are always good things to be doing. In these videos, I'm going to show you all the different kinds of things that you can make with both knitting and crochet. I would recommend that you pick one and concentrate on it. Don't try to learn both at the same time. But I am showing you now are samples of both knitting and crochet and I will teach you all the techniques you need to make each of these. Both knitting and crochet use yarn to create your masterpiece. The yarn comes in multiple weights and textures and fibers. You can get a natural cotton, a wool, or even this cashmere, which is very fine and delicate. It also comes in acrylic, like this one. You also have nylon, depending on what you're making. You pick your fibers. We have this one, which has got a very rough texture that can be used to make a scrub for your kitchen. We have textures like this, all fluffed up, or this one, which gives you ruffles. They also have recycled. This was recycled t-shirt fabric. They've got the big fuzz, like this one. And I have this one ball that is, you can see that it changes texture as it goes through the skein. You also have things like this that has that little bit of sparkle. I did one hat, the yarn was reflective. Your yarn also comes in a variety of weights. Everything from this big thick that you don't even need your hooks and needles to work with. You can arm knit this, or this one, which is fuzzy. There's a bulky weight, there's your standard worsted weight, and there is even this very tiny cotton. You pick the yarn that goes with your project. Most yarns on the label will tell you what size needle you should use or what size crochet hook. This is a medium weight, tells you that. It also tells you this is washer and dryable. Don't dry clean, don't iron it. It's all on the label right here for you. It tells you what the weight of the yarn is and what it's made out of. If you choose the crochet, you will be using a hook. The hooks, like the yarn, come from very, very large to very, very small. You choose the one that goes with your project. This one you would use for the yarn I said would be good for arm knitting. This is for something a little heavier. Most of your hooks are more around this size or this size. The sizes are right here. And you can see it says J10, 6 millimeter. We tend to use the J most. When you get to the extremely large, they'll go to the number. The millimeter size is usually done in Europe. This one has the wooden handle to make it a little more ergonomic because the handle itself would be very small. The steel hook is used for the very, very fine, that thread I showed you. They also come decorative, just for fun. Your yarn will tell you what hook to use, or your pattern will. I'll talk about patterns later. With your knitting needles, they again come from very large to very small, depending on the weight you're working with and what your pattern calls for. They are also marked with a size. This one says 35 or 20 millimeter. These are size 2, and you're not going to be able to read the writing on them. They come in different lengths depending on how many stitches you cast on to start your knitting with. These 4 needles, the only difference is the length. The size of the needle is the same. But if you are working on a baby sweater, you will need these. If you're working on a blanket, you'd probably want a pair like this. Knitting needles come in both metal, plastic, and wood. You customize the choice of needle to your fabric. You don't want metal needles and something that's fairly slick. But if you have a wool, you would want the slicker needle. Needles also come in different styles. These are all straight needles. They also come in the circular. This is for doing a hat with no seams, for instance. It is also good if you are doing one of those blankets, because you have the entire length of the cord to put your stitches on. If you are doing something round that doesn't work with the circular, you'll use the double points. You put your project will be on 3 or 4, and you knit with the extra. Under the category of notions is all the little things that help make life easier. This is a row counter. It will help you keep track of where you are in your pattern. A row counter comes in lots of styles, but it all serves the same function. A way to help you keep track of where you are. And I use mine a lot. And then you would always want to have available to you something like a small little tape measure, because they'll tell you knit for 11 inches and then begin another section. So you'll want one of those. You also need to have handy to you a tapestry needle. They have them various sizes. You need something big enough to get your yarn in, from these metal ones to these plastic ones. Again, what you will use depends on the size of your yarn. You wouldn't want to use that when you're knitting something as delicate as this. This little jewel I love. If something goes wrong and you have to pick up stitches that have slipped off your needle, it has a crochet hook on one end and a knit needle on the other. Especially if you're working in something small, a small weight yarn, these come in very handy. You will also want to use stitch markers. They come in lots of styles. These are solid rounds. You can't open and close them. You do not use these in crochet. These are knitting only. And these are just nice sets. You also have the kind that will open and close that you would use for crochet. They're also good if you're coming along and you found you've dropped a stitch. You can pick it up and put it on the needle so that when you knit back to it, you can fix your mistake. But this is one kind of opening and closing, and this is the other kind. They open and then they close. Once you have picked your pattern and have decided to start your project, you will find that they come with everything you need. You've got telling you what yarn to use, what your gauge is supposed to be, how many stitches per inch, the size of your knitting needles. But when you get to the pattern, it looks like it's written in code. But that's all right. It's not that complicated, and the first few times you might want to write it out in words, because each one of these means something. That means knit two. YO is yarn over. With your pattern, there's going to come the code telling you what each one it means. See, the YO is a yarn over. Pattern is pattern. S2 KP, slip 2 stitches together as if to knit, and so forth. It will tell you everything you need. When you get really experienced, you'll be doing it from a chart. And again, each one of these symbols represents a stitch. But don't let any of this intimidate you, because when you're starting out, you're not working something like this. This is not a beginner's project. And we will go over all that stuff when I get into teaching just the knit or just the crochet part. Crochet patterns also come, some of them are charted and some of them are written. And again, if it helps you to do it, write it out in words longhand before you start. But don't let this intimidate you, because your beginning projects will not be something like this. Knitting and crocheting can be rewarding and relaxing, but like any new skill, it does take practice, but it is not complicated, and we can do this together.